The American Revolution was one of the most important events in world history. It set off a wave of independence movements around the world and led to the creation of the United States of America. But how did it start? What were the causes of the American Revolution? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. Hi and welcome to my channel. The American Revolution was fought between the Kingdom of Great Britain and the 13 colonies in North America. And so, in this video, we're gonna look at both sides and how they came to be at war. Great Britain was a global power with far-reaching colonial possessions around the world. Their North American colonies were some of their first settlements, and they would become the 13 colonies. The colonies were located along the eastern coast of North America, from Maine down to Georgia. While they were close to one another, geographically, they were quite different from each other, economically, socially, and politically. The northern colonies were more focused on manufacturing and shipping, while the southern colonies had large plantations worked on by many slaves. Despite these differences, they all shared one thing in common: self-government. Over the years, the British government had given the colonies a lot of autonomy. They could manage their own affairs and create their own laws with little interference from the mother country. This was because Great Britain was simply too far away to really keep track of what was going on in North America. Besides, they didn't really care that much about what was happening there. The colonies were basically left alone to develop into their own thing. However, after the French and Indian War, things would change dramatically. The French and Indian War was fought between Great Britain and France from 1754 to 1763. It was a conflict over land and resources in North America. The war was costly for Great Britain, and when it was over, they found themselves in a lot of debt. To make matters worse, the war had devastated their North American colonies. The British government needed to find a way to pay off the debt, and they looked to their colonies for help. The British government began to impose new taxes on the colonies. These taxes were very unpopular, and the colonists began to protest. One of the first taxes imposed was the Sugar Act. The Sugar Act was a tax on sugar and other goods. The colonists protested by boycotting British goods and smuggling in sugar from other sources. The British government responded by sending in troops to enforce the tax. This only made the situation worse. The colonists became more determined to resist British rule. Another unpopular tax was the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act was a tax on all printed materials, including newspapers, pamphlets, and legal documents. The colonists responded by starting a boycott of British goods and launching a propaganda campaign against the tax. They also formed groups to help them resist the British. One of the most famous of these groups was the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty was a group founded in 1765 to fight against British taxation in the colonies. The group was formed by Samuel Adams and other members of the Massachusetts House of Representatives. The group started by organizing protests against the Stamp Act. They held public meetings, wrote pamphlets, and organized boycotts. They also formed a network of spies to keep tabs on the British. This network allowed them to warn colonists of any British troop movements. In addition to the protests, the Sons of Liberty also engaged in acts of violence. In 1768, a group of Sons of Liberty killed 2 British soldiers. This event became known as the Boston Massacre. The British government responded by sending in more troops to put down the rebellion, but the Sons of Liberty continued to fight back. In 1770, a group of Sons of Liberty hanged for British soldiers. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. The British government responded by closing the port of Boston. This was an attempt to punish the colonists and force them to comply. But it only made the situation worse. The colonists were outraged by the closure of the port, and they began to plan a full-scale rebellion. Now, While all this was going on, the colonists were not alone. They had secret allies in the form of European powers. The colonists knew that they couldn't win a war against Britain without help, so they reached out to France, Spain, and the Netherlands for assistance. The European powers were willing to help the colonists because they saw an opportunity to weaken their rival, Great Britain. In 1775, the Revolutionary War began. The first shots were fired at Lexington and this battle is considered to be the first battle of the war. The colonists were led by George Washington. George Washington was a general in the Virginia militia. He was chosen to lead the Continental Army, the military force created by the Second Continental Congress to fight against Britain. Under his leadership, the Continental Army would go on to win the war and establish the United States of America. As the war dragged on, it became clear that the colonists were winning. The European powers began to send in supplies and money to help the colonists. By 1781, the colonists had won the war, and the United States of America was born. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3rd, 1783. This treaty ended the war, recognized the United States as a free and independent nation. While this is a very simplified version of the American Revolution, it covers the main points of the war. If you want to know more about the American Revolution, then I encourage you to do further research. There are many books and articles available that cover this topic in greater detail. You can also watch other videos on my channel. I have many videos on the American Revolution and other topics. Now let's take a look at some important people who impacted the American Revolution. John Hancock was a wealthy merchant and smuggler who became the first person to sign the Declaration of Independence. Samuel Adams was a leader of the Sons of Liberty and one of the main organizers of the Boston Tea Party. Paul Revere was a silversmith and member of the Sons of Liberty. He is best known for his midnight ride to warn the colonists of the coming British attack. Thomas Jefferson was the main author of the Declaration of Independence. He would later become the third president of the United States. Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Continental Congress and one of the most important diplomats of the American Revolution. He secured the support of France for the American cause. George Washington was the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. He is considered to be the hero of the American Revolution. Without his leadership, it is unlikely that the colonists would have won the war. The American Revolution was a time of great upheaval and change in North America. The 13 colonies won their independence from Great Britain, and the United States of America was born. This event would have a profound impact on the world and set off a wave of independence movements around the globe. And that's it for this video. We hope you enjoyed learning about the American Revolution. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. We have many other videos on the American Revolution and other topics. Thank you for watching.